so glad you're here.
We believe in bringing in experts to inspire and to educate women so that they can live empowered, fulfilled, and successful lives.
When women support women, we change the world. Here we go.
You're going to love this program. I am so excited for our recharge today. We've had a great week. It's been so wonderful to be with you all week, and then I get to cap it off with doing the program. So our guest is a CEO, certified coach, speaker, and widow. She's led a multi-million-dollar supply chain technology business and was also the CEO of the nonprofit Female Strong. Today, she uses this more than 20 years of professional experience to help widows reground to find productivity and purpose once again in the workplace and at home so they can move forward confidently, find joy again, and build everyday resilience. Our guest is Jody LaVoie. Welcome to the Recharge, Jody.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I was looking back in my notes to remember when we first met, and I know it was through the Women's Forum. And do you remember what it was? And also, I'd love to know what drew you to the Women's Forum.
Absolutely. So I do remember. And my first event was this holiday soiree. I think you call it soirees in your office. And you had a chef come and cook some healthy nibbles and some bubbles. And my friends from National Safety Council introduced me. And if I recall, at that event, there were a handful of those women there, and I met many other amazing women. And that's really, in addition to the programming you have with your events, I love the women that I've been meeting and connections that I still have today.
That's wonderful. We love to hear that. Well, welcome, and let's jump into today. You personify designing and living a brilliant life, and I'd love to have you talk a little bit about your journey to get from how you've created this life today for yourself.
Absolutely. And it's been quite a journey for sure. And I guess where it all started, this pivotal moment in my life and my family's lives, I'll bring you back to 2014. It was this bright summer day, and I got a knock on our door. And I opened the door, and there's a LaGrange police officer holding a slip of paper. And all he said was, "Your husband has been gravely injured. Can you call this number?" And I said, "Well, of course I can call the number, but what happened?" And he would tell me nothing. So I called that number, and it was a Chicago police officer. And that police officer just said, "Your husband is in surgery. Can you get a ride downtown?" Again, no more information than that. So I call my dad. He's going to drive me downtown. And 2 minutes later, I get a call from the press who say, "Your husband has been shot at work. Do you have a comment?"
Mm. Wow.
Yes, I said no comment because I'd never had to make a comment before. So I had no idea what one does, except in the movies, that's what they do. And I went downtown, and I remember driving in and seeing the helicopters, the news helicopters hovering over the scene, which was right downtown in the loop. My husband had founded a business many years prior, but on this day, he had demoted our chief technology officer 4 days prior. And then that person came back to the office and shot my husband, and then he killed himself on the spot. So overnight, I'm running a business. I'm solo parenting 3 daughters. I'm trying to figure out how to take care of myself and my home. And I'm in shock and certainly in heavy grief.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I can't imagine what that was like. I mean, you had, well, first and foremost, your girls, your family to take care of. You had this business, which was a significant
Mhm.
legacy and also your financial underpinning. And you had all those employees that were there that obviously needed some support after being involved in this trauma. How did you start to move forward?
Oh my gosh. One step at a time, for sure. And, I just dug right in. I knew first and foremost, I had an amazing team. And we did some reorganization with the executive team to make sure we realigned people because obviously we were down 2 executive team members. And everybody was all hands on deck. There was no way they were going to let the ship go down. They loved my husband. They
Mm,
loved the
mm,
mission of our organization, and everybody was vested and all in from the beginning of this
wow.
incident.
Mm, wow. That
So I think
speaks volumes.
I think a lot about Jody, the courage that it took to take that first step. Given what you and your family had and your employees had just gone through, and the courage and resilience are things that are on my heart for you right now. And I'm curious, from a courage perspective today, what inspires you to push the boundaries, to be more of who you can be, and to how you're serving others today through your work?
Absolutely. And I'd say there's multiple steps to answer this question. So,
Yeah.
first and foremost, day 1, there was no way I was going to let the business fail or my family fail. And I would say that wasn't forefront of my mind,
Hmm.
but it was definitely inherent in my being. There were my 3 daughters who at the time were 15, 12, and 9
Oof.
that were struggling. Clearly,
Mm,
this is scary.
mm,
And not only is it obviously devastating to lose your father, but in a way that's so violent,
mm,
it made their world just not safe anymore. And for the employees, there was no way. We had employees; they have family. There was
mhm,
no way that
mhm,
that was going to go down.
mhm.
And the company, we were the largest shareholders, but we had friends and family who were investors in the business as well, which is a whole other level of responsibility there.
Right. Mhm,
But
mhm.
I would say, the bottom line, the courage was my daughters every day coming home to them and seeing what they're going through. And as a woman, being a strong role model for
Yeah,
them
yeah,
as I'm modeling how I would like their life to move forward. And one thing I'm really proud of is they see their mother in a different light today and after all this happened in 2014. Not that they didn't love me and hold me in high esteem, but they saw me as they called me a badass, which I loved, and they still say that, and you know what? I wanna raise 3 badass women, so I'll take
Amen.
that.
well,
Absolutely.
and I've had a chance to get to know one of your daughters, and I can tell you she's on that path. And I want to just acknowledge in that I read a post that you had sent out on LinkedIn recently that really struck me, and I think it speaks to your courage and your commitment to be there to your daughters. That one of them said, when you asked, "What do you need?" as you're grieving yourself, and her response was, "I just need you to listen. I don't need, because you can't fix anything."
Mm,
And that was a good wake-up call for
Yeah,
me
yeah.
because as a mom, I'm a fixer. I wanna protect them. I wanna take away the pain.
mhm.
And that's just not possible in grief. It
Yeah.
isn't. And I really appreciated her telling me that because I learned a lot. And I guess one phrase when my daughters are kind of dumping their, emotional stuff that they have at the moment, I'll say to them, I said, okay, would you like me to just listen or would you like me to help you solve the problem?
Mm.
And 90% of the time they'll say, I just want you to listen. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And frankly, that's a great help for me because then I can dial into, okay, I'm just going to be in listening mode.
Well, Jody, I know we've talked about that because I have a 21-year-old and I'm a fixer too. And I've heard on several occasions, Mom, I just want you to listen.
Yeah.
So, um, what I do really love about what you've done, you focused on continuing the business, you grew it, you sold it, that was such an amazing success. Um, but now you've channeled this experience into really doing work of service, right? Very mission based work. What was it that inspired you to make this pivot to really help other women find that courage, manifest optimism, rediscover joy? When did you decide that was your calling and your next step?
Yes. So, I would say inherent in who I am and have always been is someone that is in service of others. And I've always done that throughout my life. However, after all this happened and I sold the business, my slate was wiped clean because I knew I wanted a fresh start.
Mm.
But what is that fresh start and what did I want it to be? And I really spent time thinking, what is it that I value? And what is it and who is it that I want to be in service to? And I really wanted to help widows because what I went through was awful.
Mm.
And I would like to be able to help widows shorten their grieving experience. And also, I work specifically with widows in the workplace because not only is it a challenge to manage yourself and your family, but to be a career-minded woman and you still want to hold down your job, excel at your job, and still perform, it's hard. It's
Mm.
very, very hard. So I really want to and am helping widows today do all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really interesting to me. I think you shared that you were working with a woman who actually wasn't yet a widow, right? But she knew that was going to ultimately happen given her husband's situation, and that she was working with you in advance of that. That was really made a lot of sense. It was interesting to me.
And it was frankly so powerful to
Mm.
me to have this strong woman come and say, I want to set my family and I up for success going forward. And I want to work with you. And wow, I was in awe of this
Mm.
woman and
Mhm.
still am to this day, and
Mhm.
she's just doing so much work to make sure that they're in a solid place to move forward on not only working with me but other fronts as well in her life, and that is a joy to see.
Mhm.
It's great.
That's a powerful investment in oneself at perhaps what might be a difficult time, for sure. So, um, so we have badass, we have courage, we have leader. So, what would you say are your superpowers? One, and a second part of that question, Jody, is if you ran the world, what what is the first change you'd make?
So let's see, I'll start with my superpower because that really leads into what is very important to me and my family, and frankly a really strong point of how we were running the business. So first of all, I'm going to put it in superpower terms and say reading minds, but
Mm.
I say that from the standpoint of connection to people, connection to emotion, connection to situation, empathy. those are all things that are at the core of who I am.
Mhm.
And so, what that leads me to, and running the world, which I don't want that job, but if I were, something that is near and dear to my heart and always has been is the importance of mental health.
Mhm.
And it truly goes back to when I met
Yeah.
my husband. When I met my husband, he was in psychoanalysis because he really wanted to change how he was thinking, and how he was showing up in the world. And he invested so much in himself to make him the best version of himself possible. And he shared his journey with employees at the company,
Wow.
everyone that would listen. He was
Wow.
on the board of the Chicago Institute for Psychoanalysis. And so our dinner time conversations were very focused on, so how does that make you feel?
Mm.
Trying to get to the emotion of our children. And he certainly encouraged me, and I've had therapy for many, many years. And so for this world, I would love to make it more accessible,
Mhm.
destigmatize
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
feelings and conversations that unfortunately still exist today around mental health. And it's just, and I truly believe, what happened to my husband was a mental health, cause of a mental health issue. And
Right.
so the more solid our world could be with their own mental health, that would just change so many different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. So true. And how wonderful. I mean, especially from a gender issue, being that vocal about getting mental health support was unusual. So that was really great that he was so
Mhm.
forthcoming. You deal with a lot of heavy stuff every day, Jody. So, um, how do you practice self care, and what brings you joy?
Uh, it's true. Even though I'm working with widows and grief, and it doesn't feel heavy to me because I'm helping them,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and so that does bring me joy. But there are other things. I love getting out in nature. There's just something about hiking and looking at a mountain and fresh air and getting away from a downtown environment and laughter. And I'll say I love belly laughs. And belly laughs are, you know what they are. It's just like you can't stop laughing, and it just brings a smile to your face, and you're laughing so hard you're crying. Like that is, I want more belly laughs, as many as I can have.
Okay, so do I. So, how do you pursue belly laughs?
Yeah, I'd say I don't pursue it going, okay, I'm going to do this and there will be a belly laugh. It's usually my daughters and I, we just have some funny stories about trips we've taken and things that have happened that make us just laugh hysterically. And in the moment, for the person that's experiencing it, it's not so funny. But later, we have funny stories about killer bees, almost falling off a volcano, hiking with mono. Okay, there's three.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
Well, there's
hysterical.
something when it's a shared experience that gives it so much power, right? And then it reconnects you, and that's fun when it is infectious when you're doing with other people.
So true.
Yeah, definitely. And so, Jody, now you are the CEO, the CFO of your family of this new business that you've launched to help other widows. And one of the things we like to do in these conversations is to thread in an aspect of your financial life. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you've been intentional in building and managing your financial resources and becoming or continuing to be financially resilient.
Absolutely. So it's been a journey over time for sure. And I, I'm in my 50s today, ladies, but back in my 20s, something that I regret but took care of very quickly was I had credit card debt.
Mm,
That is not a good thing to have, and
mm,
I had it for probably 3 years, and then, obviously paid everything off, and I teach my daughters, "Do not have credit card debt. If you don't have the money, don't spend the money, because that is some interest that compounds very quickly."
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I also wish, and you ladies are so good at this, but started saving earlier because and you all know the numbers, but if you start
Mhm.
saving $100 when you're 22, that compounds over time, and then if you don't start saving till you're 32, whoa, you're behind. And
Right.
so and I did start saving. I guess I just wish I would have started saving a little bit more.
Mhm.
And then I met my husband, and he was a CFO and had a big financial background at that time. And so I was thankful for that because, managing money, I think, scared me a little bit. And I was happy that he took on really the long-term savings aspect of it, the balance sheet part of our finances. And I managed more of the P&L
Mhm.
and paid the bills and did the QuickBooks, and that was fine for me. We would talk about long-term financial decisions for sure, but I didn't dig into what all that really meant
Mhm.
because I knew he did and I was completely comfortable with that. But now that I'm doing this all on my own, I'm having to certainly learn more. I am definitely I know I can't become an expert in everything, and I've lived my life as in my widowhood of knowing I can't do that. There's just so many hours in the day. So
Right.
I've hired help. I actually recently converted all of my personal and business finances to QuickBooks. I hired a bookkeeper to help me lay out what does give me my monthly report so I can really understand what
Right.
is where, and when my daughters leave the payroll, how much of that is actually leaving the payroll, and really be on top. That's helped a lot. And then secondly, I have financial advisors that are able to help me from a long-term investment
Good.
perspective, but we have regular meetings that I pay attention to and am actively listening at and really thinking thoughtfully about what that financial future looks like.
Well, you are a role model for us. We love that you're engaged, but we also love that you know that you don't have to be the expert, right?
Right.
That
Right.
you need to have a team to help you be successful. And as long as you're engaged, that's what matters. So, kudos to you on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
so we'd love to hear what's next for you. I know you just launched this business, so that's kind of next. But what are you excited about in the coming year or so?
Well, absolutely building the business for sure, but I'm going to be an empty nester next year. Ah, like,
Wow.
where did time go?
Ah,
So,
or yay,
you know,
or both. Yeah.
you know, I guess both. It's going to be weird. And even though my youngest is a senior now and busy with friends and, out doing her thing, there's still going to be this moment when I drop her off from college and then come home and go, whoa, it's pretty quiet
Yeah.
here. And I don't have to buy as many groceries. And my daughters likely are not going to settle here in Chicago. So where do I want to go? Because I would like to
Mhm.
be somewhere closer to them. And I would like to get out of Chicago in the winter for sure. So I think there is another destination in mind for me, and I will probably experiment a couple places, VRBO ish, for a month or so here and there to figure out what it is where I want to settle location wise.
Well, you shared with me, which I love, is that your business is really a virtual business,
Mhm.
right? So you can leverage that technology, and then the flexibility of being present with your girls, in different cities, regardless of where they end up making home.
Absolutely. And that was very intentional on my part because I knew I want to continue doing what I'm doing and I want to be able to do it from anywhere. And
Right.
so it also allows me to expand my reach. I can reach widows all over the
Right.
country and
Right.
internationally as well.